dedicated and committed.
Terry is an incisive author.
Nobody becomes successful by using their weaknesses, and we have to be conscious about using our strengths to mitigate the impact of our weaknesses on our lives. Leadership is a sense, it's a certain mindset, it's a certain understanding, a certain paradigm that you have, which translates into influence, into making an impact, into having a positive impact on the lives of other people.
Terry is a terrific writer.
Terry's books are not only relevant for the development of potential and capacity, they are also essential for the refinement of ethics and character.
Everybody needs a Terry Mante book. Get them from reputable online stores and libraries. Connect with us by phone, email, or social media.
A victim is someone who is at the receiving end of an unfavorable occurrence or action. At some point in our lives, everybody will become a victim of something or someone. Nobody goes through life without ever tasting the victim's wine. However, we don't have to remain victims all our lives. Today, I want to tell you to refuse to be a victim. In John chapter 5, there's a story of a man at the pool of Bethesda. The pool of Bethesda was a place where many sick people gathered, expecting that they would be healed. The belief around the method for the healing was that at certain points during the day or at certain points in time, an angel usually comes and he comes to stir the water in the pool. And when the water is stirred, the first person who is able to jump into the pool receives their healing. There was this particular man who had been at the pool for 38 good years of his life. I don't know how old he was when he got there, whether he was put there at birth or he got there at a certain point. So this man will probably be more than 38, but he'd spent a greater part of his adult life there, waiting to be healed. One day, Jesus came to the pool of Bethesda and went straight to this man and asked him a question and asked, "Do you want to be made well?" The man responded and said, "I have no one to help me. Anytime I want to get into the pool, somebody steps ahead of me and jumps in. So I miss the moment or the opportunity to be healed." The answer he gave did not correspond with the question Jesus asked. Do you want to be made well? It's a simple answer you give, yes or no. But instead of that, he went on blaming other people. Normally, people who have the victim's mindset have a sense of helplessness, they have a sense of disappointment, they have a sense of always blaming people, and then they always like to defend. They are always defensive. They don't take responsibility for anything. And in this new year, I want to encourage all of us to first of all deal with the sense of helplessness. People who have the victim's mentality are characterized by a sense of helplessness. They do not think that they can do anything about their predicament. They resign themselves to forces outside their control. Yes, things do not always go the way we expect. There are things we cannot control in our lives, but there is never a time when we cannot control anything at all. At every point in our lives, there are things we can control and there are other things we cannot control. The problem with victims is that they focus so much on what they cannot control that they lose sight of what they can control, and that gives birth to a sense of helplessness. Victims believe that they cannot do anything about situations they don't like. They also believe that their fortune in life will come from somewhere else. A sense of helplessness puts us at the receiving end of the vagaries of the environment. The second thing we have to deal with if we are going to refuse to be victims of circumstances is to throw away the mentality of being overly defensiveness. A defensive person is one who holds out a shield to fend off attacks. Under normal circumstances, a shield is not used for offensive strokes. It is meant to be used as a defensive weapon. A shield is useful when an enemy launches an onslaught on you. It is in the moment of attack that you draw your shield. Victims hold their shield in very high esteem because they always believe that there is someone or something ready to pounce on them. Instead of arming themselves with a sword of faith, knowledge, and hard work, they hold on to the shield of complaints and excuses. Instead of looking for ways out of their misery, victims are good at explaining why they are not cruising in life. A defensive mindset cripples your life and makes you a victim of circumstances. Third thing we should do to refuse to be victims of circumstances is to deal with the mentality of apportioning blames. Blame apportioning. One of the favorite pastimes of victims is to look into the window and point fingers at others. As an African, I have realized that we are good at blaming the West and the global system for our underdevelopment. We like to talk about slave trade, colonialism, racism, and unfair trade practices. However, we fail to acknowledge that slave trade was a transactional interaction that occurs between two willing parties. We supplied and they bought. We overlook the fact that colonialism was not instituted through acts of conquest, but was made possible by our ignorance. And it is not their fault that we were ignorant. Our governments, instead of focusing on solving problems, prefer to blame past governments for the challenges that confront our nations. Political parties in opposition are more focused on making certain governments look bad rather than proposing alternative solutions to our challenges. Until we take definite steps to address corruption, incompetent leadership, and senseless traditions, the story of Africa will only get worse and sadder. Likewise, at our individual level, we like to play the blame game. We point fingers at our employers for not paying us well enough, instead of reining in our inordinate expenditure patterns. We blame our dead parents who did not leave inheritance for us, instead of focusing on how we can create inheritance for our children's children. Victims don't take responsibility for their lives. They blame others to court pity. The final thing I'll talk about before I go, especially when we are dealing with how we refuse to be victims, is bitterness. Bitterness is a common emotion exhibited by victims. A bitter person is one who harbors pain and regret because of what others have done to them. They freeze their lives and sing from the pity hymn book. They want everybody to sympathize with them and to acknowledge that they have not been treated fairly. They deposit offenses in the bank of their hearts with the expectation that people who have offended them will come back and withdraw from those offenses with apology. It may be true that somebody treated you badly, but playing the pity tune or waiting for apology will not help you much. It will only compound your pain, especially if people you feel must understand you do not, or those who offend you don't apologize. It is time to throw away the victim's garments and embrace the victor's cap. Don't just invest in shield. You must own a sword. You must take charge of your life and release all pain and hurt from your heart. So 4 things we must deal with if we are going to refuse to be victims of circumstances. We must deal with a sense of helplessness. We must overcome defensiveness. We must not apportion blame all the time to people, and we must not harbor bitterness in our hearts. This is Terry Mante. Happy New Year.
Once you love to read, you will be free forever.
Terry Mante is a great person to get content and deep revelation with both biblical insight and socio-economic thought.
Terry is someone who is very dedicated and committed.
Terry is an incisive author.
Nobody becomes successful by using their weaknesses, and we have to be conscious about using our strengths to mitigate the impact of our weaknesses on our lives. Leadership is a sense, it's a certain mindset, it's a certain understanding, a certain paradigm that you have, which translates into influence, into making an impact, into having a positive impact on the lives of other people.
Terry is a terrific writer.
Terry's books are not only relevant for the development of potential and capacity, they are also essential for the refinement of ethics and character.
Everybody needs a Terry Mante book. Get them from reputable online stores and libraries. Connect with us by phone, email, or social media.